So it occurred to me that maybe some of you guys, especially you younger guys who haven't had a lot of experience with insurance or liability coverage, I thought maybe this would help you guys. And using me as an example, I just sort of did a full review and did a full sort of assessment on my liability coverage and made some significant changes. And I thought, I'd show you guys this. And you can sort of use it for whatever it's worth. But what I'm talking about here is we're talking about the auto insurance, homeowners insurance, and then any other sort of liability coverage that might be necessary. And this is the spreadsheet that my Chubb agent set me up with. I'm not a licensed liability insurance agent. I'm a life insurance agent, but not a liability coverage. So don't take this as gospel. This is what I know about it. I'm certainly not an expert, but I know enough to be dangerous. So the category on the left here, I had sort of traditional everyman's Liberty Mutual insurance. Liberty Mutual, the reason why I had it is at the time when I purchased my house, they were the only major carrier writing homeowners policies in the state of Florida. So I bought this new house, and this was an opportune time to do a full assessment. And I'd been looking for somebody or looking for an agent or somebody that sort of aligned with me or did very similar stuff to what I do, so that I can refer my clients to. And I was having a difficult time finding that person. Well, I think I finally found that guy. So if you want me to connect you to him, I certainly can. It really doesn't matter where you are. I think you can write policies in any state. But I'm going to sort of take you through just a couple of things here, or maybe more than a couple of things on my policy. So just a couple of things to point out, and many of you, the older established gentlemen, I'm sure know this stuff, but for some of my younger followers, I think this might be helpful. It's stuff that I didn't always know. The only reason I know it is because I'm, like I've told you guys many times, insane. So Liberty Mutual policy was an HO3 policy, and I've transitioned to an HO5. Really, the only difference there is, and you'd have to read through the list in your policy, but Liberty Mutual has all the perils named, where Chubb has a few exclusions. So basically, the difference here is that Liberty Mutual names what's covered. Chubb is covering everything with the exception of a couple of things. HO5 is superior to HO3 in most cases, unless the HO3 policy happens to have every possible thing named on the planet. Chances are an HO5 policy is going to cover more potential problems. I had my house. I paid $820,000 for it. The problem is to rebuild the thing would cost a lot more. So I had bumped up the policy to $955,000 in coverage, and versus Chubb had suggested that I do $1,120,000. Based on their research. And that's the difference with Liberty Mutual. You just tell them what you want, and Chubb, they sort of help you figure it out. And then replacement cost extension, they'll extend over 150% over that cost, basically saying that if it whatever it costs to rebuild my house, they'll pay for it. Other structures I didn't have properly insured. I have the pole barn, and then I'm going to have the separate garage. So right now I have $224,000 in coverage, which is probably more than I need. Personal property. Personal property is all your stuff. Now here's the key. They're gonna. An insurance company, if you've ever had this happen to you, God forbid, but if you ever had this happen to you where you lost your house, caught on fire or something like that, you're going to have to list what you got. So you're going to have to create a listing of everything that that you need. Or everything that you want to replace, and there are limits to things. Jewelry is limited to like $1,500. Computers, cameras, a lot of stuff that us crazies might have. may not be covered under this sort of personal property thing. So, at some point, and Chubb has a service, I'm probably going to use that service where they'll come out and do a sort of a room by room analysis of what everything's worth. I don't really know much about this medical payments thing here. I just know that Chubb is covering more. I think this would be if someone rolled their ankle or something like that. It's just a basic sort of medical coverage that outside of your sort of limit, your liability coverage, just easier to get to than liability coverage. So, liability, I have a pool, and this is what got this whole thing started, so I needed to make sure that I had some significant liability coverage. So the homeowners alone is covering $1 million, and then I purchased a $5 million umbrella, which hopefully would be sufficient in any sort of issue. Rebuilding the code, self-explanatory. Another thing, water backup. So if the pipe blow up in your house or something and you flood the house, Liberty Mutual is not really going to cover very much, where Chubb covers the whole house. Something to think about. Cash settlement, so you'll have the option to they'll just write you a check if you want that. This is sort of standard on a higher end policy versus a standard sort of run of the mill Liberty Mutual or a big company. They cover mold, they cover sinkhole coverage, whereas Liberty Mutual had a large deductible. The sinkholes are an issue in Florida with the aquifer underneath us. They cover a certain amount of landscaping. Liberty Mutual didn't really cover that. Identity theft, whatever. Personal injury. So this would be if you were sued for sort of something over and above liability. I also have a kidnap expense covered, so you don't get any ideas of coming and stealing my kids. But it's a low cost that they would cover, sort of an expense for for hiring attorneys, things like that. So notice the cost of the two is pretty significantly different. So I'm getting substantial liability coverage increases in pretty much every category, and it's costing me less on this particular coverage. Now, I'd mentioned earlier, and these are sort of blanket coverages. You can insure individual things, but I have expensive cameras, and then I have a couple of pieces of jewelry. I just chose to choose a sort of a blanket $50,000 coverage. So that's just stuff so I'm paying $1,200 a year on jewelry and camera. So here's one of the keys. My umbrella policy covers starts coverage at $300,000 in liability. So that's so important that you have proper amount of liability coverage on your autos. So I needed to be sure that one uninsured motorist coverage was adequate. So notice I went from $50,000 to $300,000. An uninsured motorist is a huge deal or issue in Florida. There's so many people that don't have insurance coverage that you'd be on the hook for. So uninsured motorist coverage needed to be increased significantly, and that's why I have a significant increase in costs or premium. So I have significant coverage improvements in loss of use and road service and all this stuff. That a lot of it is sort of unnecessary, but the cost of adding these things were pretty minimal. So the key here is that if you get in a car accident and you run into the side of an art museum and you have $3 million worth of damage, that on your auto insurance policy it's only going to cover $300,000, and then the other $2.7 million you're just going to probably have to file for bankruptcy instead. I've got my liability policy to catch anything over and above that $300,000 up to $5 million. But I thought you guys might want to see sort of, and using me as an example of what coverages I was lacking, and how much of an improvement. So if we take out the $1,200 here, what am I? There's $700 difference, and then $900. So it cost me $200 more a year. Versus the Liberty Mutual policy I had, with massive coverage increases, especially on the uninsured part. which there's a high chance of that happening. I think on my liability policy, it's a group through my company, so I think I'm paying like $450 a year, something dirt cheap for the $500 or $5 million policy coverage, and it's through Chubb as well. So anyway, just thought you guys might be interested in that, and that's my car tip liability coverage of the week. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more crazy stuff.
See, Daddy, come over here. Can you wave to everybody? Wave to the camera. Hi, everybody. Baby don't get big tail.